Well, hello and welcome to the channel. I know I've got a little flurry of new subscribers, so you're really very welcome. Thanks to the lovely Floret films which went out this week, which were fantastic, and I'm so grateful to have been included in that incredible combination of flower growers from all around the world. What a compliment to be one of the 30 that were chosen to say what they had to say about being a flower farmer, so that we can share with more people what it's like to be a flower farmer, why we do it, what's the why. I'm always interested in the why and what it's really like. Anyway, I've had a great time working on that with Erin and Rob and the team, and it was really fantastic, and I know that some of you have come over because of that. So welcome to Common Farm Flowers here in not very sunny today, Somerset, between fashionable Bruton and up and coming Wincanton. I am just getting my dahlias out to start setting them up to sprout. It is the 7th of March. This is the first of about 5 big trays of dahlias that have spent the winter upstairs here in the cool attic of my store, but I'm not going to do dahlias this afternoon. I'm going to get them set up and I'll give you a good tour of the farm next week. But I do have a little project to do this afternoon, and I thought I'd invite you to come along with me and maybe inspire you to have a go in your gardens yourselves this weekend. So those of you who've been around before, you know how this works. This is called a 30 stem challenge. And my position is that even if your garden is still in the grip of winter and there is apparently absolutely nothing there for you to bring into the house to give you something to look at, I bet you there is something. There'll be a tiny sign of spring. There will be buds on a branch. There'll be twiggery pokery. I'm very keen on my twiggery pokery. There'll be something that you can cut, a twig with lichen on it, moss, old leaves still looking attractive, all kinds of things that you could bring in and make an arrangement in your house for you to admire or give to a friend. Anyway, it's called a 30 stem challenge, and I'm going to do a 30 stem challenge today because it is International Women's Day tomorrow. And while I don't have a garden full of purple, white and green, so I haven't got the women's suffrage movement colours, I have got some very pretty spring-like things. And I'm going to give a talk tomorrow on International Women's Day at the Seed Hub in Wincanton, which is where world famous PR Lynne Franks now lives in Wincanton. And she has a little hub in what used to be a pub, and she quite often has get-togethers, and she's very keen on encouraging women to get together and encourage one another. So I've been invited along tomorrow, and I'm going to be there with our local MP Sarah Dyke, my friend and neighbour Saskia, Marjoram, who makes flower essences with our roses. And we've all been invited, and there'll be lots of other people too, and we've all been invited to bring along something that we can kind of, it's like a seed swap, but with all kinds of gardening things. So we could bring a plant, we could bring some seeds, whatever we like. So I'm going to make a 30 stem challenge. I'm going to make a tiny posy. It's going to be really tiny. And I love doing this kind of thing because it's not the sort of thing that I get paid for. It wouldn't be the kind of project that somebody would ring up and invite me to make for a commission, because it's not wow factory enough. But as a thing that I can take and contribute, it's great pleasure for me. So I'm off to find 30 stems in the garden. I thought you might like to come with me. It's a bit of a grey day here in not very sunny Somerset, between fashionable Bruton and up and coming Wincanton, but I'm sure we can find some sunshine in the shape of flowers if we look hard enough. So come along and let's make a gorgeous 30 stem challenge. And then the idea is that you go and do something similar with what you have flowering in your garden. And if you're in Australia and New Zealand, yes, you can do something amazing and inspire us all and make us think of what we will have in the summer. Actually, California, there are many places in the world you're way ahead of us. So we'll make a 30 stem challenge. If you make one and you'd like to share it, then take a photograph and pop it on your Instagram, if you have an Instagram, and tag at Common Farm Flowers, hashtag 30 stem challenge, and I will share a few of my stories over the weekend. Right, let's go. And if you're new to the channel, you're very welcome. Please do subscribe, press the bell icon, and we'll tell you when we've got more clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks we give you along the way are useful, you can always buy me a coffee, or better still, join my fantastic club, which has moved over to Substack, where we're all having a brilliant time. I'll put the links to coffee buying and club membership in the blurb to all my clips. Right, on we go. Now, it's always good, even if the bucket is a bit muddy, it's always good to cut material straight into water. So we're going to take a bucket of water with us. We're not cutting very much, so a little bucket will do. And I've got some nice clean snips. Highly recommend using well-sprung snips, especially if you're cutting a lot, because otherwise you risk getting RSI. So this is the biggest of our cut flower patches. Look, no flowers. But I have a good collection of foliage. So I'm going to cut some bright yellow foliage. If I had purple, white and green, I would cut purple, white and green, because it's International Women's Day and the colours are the colours of the old suffrage movement. And if I wish I had one of those wonderful women's suffrage badges, I would love that. But anyway, instead of that, we're going to go bright. We're going to go yellow. I have quite a good collection of shrubs and foliage. And this lovely yellow Euonymus japonica, I've no idea the variety, but it's a good yellow. It would make a nice little sort of suburban hedge, but really good cutting material, and variation in a leaf really adds to interest. So I'm going to have a few stems of this, but also while I'm here, look, the bay is covered in little berries. And one of the things we're going to do tomorrow is Saskia and I are going to hand round the things that we bring with us and ask people how they make people feel. And Saskia makes flower essences, which I take. I have a bespoke Saskia's essence every month, and I credit my sanity with my Saskia's essence every month. And she loves to use things. I don't know what bay means in flower essences, but there's obviously something that's drawing me to it today. I would say it was the berries. So we're going to have some lovely bay. But look, can you see it's got a very nice, I'll cut some and show you. It's got a lovely colour pink stem. You see how pink the stem is? And I think that'll look very attractive. And look at those attractive berries. So this is going to be good in my mix. It's been a little bit, we've had some real frost recently, so it's been a little bit nipped by the frost, but I'll just pinch out the frosted bits. And there you have a lovely stem. So we're going to have some bay and some Euonymus japonica. And obviously, if this is a 30 stem challenge, if I cut 5 stems of each different variety I cut, then I'm going to need 6 different ingredients to make my 30 stem challenge. So there's ingredient 1 and ingredient 2. I'm planning on making a fat little posy. So I don't need especially long stems, and I've got a really great little number down here that I'm going to cut. So this golden person is one of the first deciduous plants to come into leaf here at Common Farm, and it is Physocarpus darts gold, and if you're in America you probably call this ninebark, and it grows incredibly well on my thick clay. And look, isn't that gorgeous? The leaves are zingy yellow with a tiny bit of a pink edge. Just my kind of detail. And here we've got really the last Raggedy Ann bits of these lovely grasses. And I've been cutting this since last July. So this is really sung for its supper. It could do with a bit more of a cutback. But I'm going to not waste these last little froths and have some for my posy. It's very easy when you're standing on your back doorstep looking at your garden to think there's nothing there, there's nothing that's attractive. But look, on that on its own, it's like a nest for a dormouse or a wing for an elf. Call me a weirdo, but you'll remember. So this is lovely by Burnham Eve Price. Again, a little bit of pinky colour in the flower buds, really lovely, very pretty, and a little sort of winter to spring mix. So I'm going to have some of this. So that's an attractive mixture. 5 different ingredients. Bay, Euonymus japonica, by Burnham Eve Price, the golden grasses, the Physocarpus darts gold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Surely we have some flowers in the garden. Shall we go and have a look? So this is Fabrizio's famous wildflower meadow in its winter dormant state. Nothing much to see yet, although if you look closely, I'll show you when I do a tour, you can begin to see the shoots of things like the Fritillaria meleagris, the snake's head fritillary, for example. But you see the gate at the end? That's where we're going, because in there, in the little wooded area behind there, are some daffodils in flower. And those are going to be our flowers. So come on, let's go and find them. I'm sorry about the weather. We've had such beautiful weather all week and it's a bit grey and miserable. If you watch the Floret films, you see this when it's in full flower with the orchids. Ah yes, they will come. They are here. So do have a look at the Floret films. And when you see Wildflower Meadow full of orchids, it's this. Doesn't look as if it would do much at the moment, does it? So one of the things that people talked about a lot in the Floret films was how they are predated upon by deer and rabbits and so forth. And this is our deer and rabbit proofing, and it goes all the way around the 7 acres. It took us 15 years to save up for it, but it's been transforming, makes all the difference. So this patch here is known as the Gerd. The Gerd is an old, ancient English word for garden. Gerd, Gaerde. And they say that Henry II was the first to have an enclosed pleasure garden at his manor of Woodstock, which is now Blenheim Palace. Though, of course, in those days it was just a tower in which his lovely fair Rosamund, his mistress, after whom the rose Rosamundi is named. It's the stripy rose that makes a good hedge, very thorny. And Rosamundi was kept in this tall tower for when he visited her. Well, his wife, Eleanor of Aquitaine, was imprisoned in Winchester. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. I have a bit of a thing for medieval history. So this pond was built by my husband and the children when they were still this big during lockdown. It was a lockdown project. And the reason it's got netting on it is to keep the herons off, because it's full of amphibians, shall we say, having a lovely time at this time of year. So we don't want to lose all our amphibians to a passing heron. So the netting is to keep the amphibians safe from the predating birds. Look! Primroses. I'm going to make a very tiny posy. So I'll have some primroses. And these little daffs were here when we came here, and they've just been quietly spreading around the place. We've been here for 20 years, and they just bobble along. So we'll have some of these little daffs. I don't know what their names are. They've been here for a very long time. And the cowslips, you can see how short the stems are. So the posy can't be longer than the stems of the cowslips, which will then fit in water. These aren't cowslips. They're primroses. And I suspect that once upon a time they were mixed with a cultivar, because they're quite long stemmed for a primrose and very pale. So I think they have bred themselves from something that was, a little, when you buy trays of 6 primroses. Yes, tea cake agrees. Now, I know I'm slightly going over the 30 stems, but there's so much in the garden that I could be choosing from. Look, even I've got, the hawthorn is coming into leaf. I could have had silvery brachioglottis. I could have had cherry plum, which is not in flower yet, but has got little balls of blossom ready to pop if I bring it into the house and force it. So there's plenty to choose from. You just have to go and have a look. Don't stand on your back doorstep going, oh, there's nothing there. Go and have a look. Get up close and personal to your garden, and you'll be amazed what you find. Anyway, I've got one more thing that I am going to cut. Hidden amongst the heaps of Telema grandiflora foliage, this is the Telema, are a few hellebores. Now, if you're going to cut hellebores, look, they've been a bit had by the weather, but the green is very attractive. If you're going to cut hellebores, look for one which has begun to make a seed head, like this one. So here, still being ready to be pollinated, but done, ready to make a seed head. So this would be a good one to cut, even though, look, che bella. This has not been pollinated yet, because there are stems on here which have been. They will hold really, really nicely in water. So I know these have been a bit munched, but I like the green of them. And the thing is, the garden is not perfect. So let's have them. I'm not selling this after all, it's a gift. So I can make something that tells a story. So we can have imperfect hellebores, because the world is imperfect, but that doesn't mean it's not beautiful. So I'm going to make a sweet little posy. I've got a jam jar with the flowers in. If you've got something like this is really great. This is a Victorian jam jar. Can you see the etching on the glass? They're very attractive and make really, really nice posy holders. I love flowers to be in glass, and I love the containers to be really simple. But this is Victorian. It's the kind of thing you might find at a second-hand shop or a charity shop or a vintage bazaar. And I kind of collect them. I have a few. And my friend Nikki Lauder keeps an eye out for them for me. And having said I have a few, there seems to be no more there behind me. But anyway, I do have a few. They get used a lot. So, but a small glass jar, really simple shape, makes a really nice base for a posy. I'm just going to move the move the thing a little tiny bit so you can see what I'm doing. There we go. Right. So I'm going to make a posy. I'll put some music on, and if you don't like the music, mute it. But some people really love the music, so more people love the music than don't. So I'm going to put the music on. If you don't like it, turn it off, and we'll see what we make afterwards, what we've made afterwards. And there we have a tiny little bit more than a 30 stem challenge. I think I probably got 40 in there. That would make a very nice, here comes the bride, for a late winter, early spring bride. I love the yellow with a tiny little bit of pink. I look at the little orangey trumpets of those narcissi, and if you look very carefully deep inside, you'll find the little tiny primroses. Put it in the water for the moment. Yes, you slightly have to look for the primroses, but they're there. And that's the whole thing about spring, isn't it? You have to look for it. It's hidden. And the imperfect perfection of the hellebores, I love. And look how it's tiny. I know it looks quite big, but it is actually quite tiny. And look how even sort of made into a kind of fat, juicy cushion like this. There's so much movement in here. And the delicacy, so these little dark gold physocarpus will come out in the vase and give such pleasure. And also I love the golden featheriness of the grasses. Still flowering since last July. And the evergreen foliage is just great. Anyway, there you go. So there's my bouquet for my 30 stem challenge. I know I'm not the only one who always goes over with their 30 stems. I know there are some of you will come up with more than 30 stems. It's hard to stay at 30 stems. Once you get outside with your snips, I challenge you to do as few as 30. Anyway, there's my 30 stem challenge for International Women's Day. If I had purple, white and green, I would have done it. But I think this is a lovely accompaniment to a celebration of how far we have come, but also acknowledging that we have a way to go. Women. We have not yet achieved everything we could. Certainly, equality is not something that is easy to just help yourself to around the world. My poor old husband says, but you're very equal. And I'm like, yes, but I'm an outlier. It's everybody else. We need equality for everyone. Anyway, he's just pointing out that sometimes women have a certain amount of authority and set a good example. So I'll take that. Thank you very much, Fabrizio, and raise this for the future. If you're around tomorrow morning, Saskia and I are going to be having a chat at the Seed Cafe in Wincanton in Somerset at 10:30 in the morning. That's UK time. And if you're celebrating International Women's Day tomorrow, then chin chin.